I'm Dr. Dan from L-Vitamin Pro, and this is part 2 of our probiotic update for 2016. So I'm not sure how long this will be current, but I'll update it as we need to. The last time we talked a little bit about the Microbiome Project, and that was, it's a federally funded project to examine the bacteria that live in our skin and mucous membranes and, of course, in our guts. So we want to take a look at all that, and of course we needed the Human Genome Project to make all that possible. So what does all that mean, now that we have some data? Well, basically, we understand now that the human body is really an ecosystem. It's not so much, human cells with, some bacteria doing who knows what. Well, now we have a pretty good idea of what they're doing. And we know that our existence depends on being in harmony with our microbiome. So as you learn to take better care of your microbiome, guess what? They'll return the favor and help you improve your own health. So what are these bacteria doing? Well, one thing they do is they help synthesize something called aromatic amino acids. Now, these aromatics are things like tryptophan and tyrosine, and there are some others, but those we'll just talk about this for a second. Tryptophan, of course, gets converted into something called 5-HTP and then serotonin. I'm sure you've heard about serotonin. It's a key neurotransmitter modulator. It's a neurotransmitter in its own right, but it also helps modulate the reactions of some of the more active circuits. Now, tyrosine is converted into things like dopamine, which you've heard of, norepinephrine, epinephrine, or some of the other things, L-DOPA. You've certainly heard of L-DOPA if you know anything about Parkinson's disease. So when these things, when something's interfering with your gut bacteria, the tryptophan and tyrosine aren't going to work so well. And there's a really good article by a couple of scientists, one of them Stephanie Seneff, and they worked on how Roundup, that common herbicide that gets sprayed everywhere, can interfere with those aromatic compounds. So, I've got an article about that on our website, and of course you can read more as you look around the internet. So, other thing that's kind of interesting is that our liver, of course, is involved in things like detox of any kind of drug that you might take, or any kind of pesticide, herbicide, of course, that gets put into our bodies. But it turns out that somehow certain bacteria in our intestines can switch on those genes that help the whole detox process, which is kind of interesting. And the mechanism for that really isn't understood. But researchers have seen this happening. So how's the best way to keep this gut healthy? And of course, when I say gut, I'm referring to all the entire microbiome, all the other mucous membranes and skin. So I just say gut for short. The first thing, like I always say, you want to be sure that you're eating the things that, or giving your body the things that it wants, and stop giving it things you don't want. Now, of course, what it does want and what it doesn't want, that can take you a long time to figure out, and it's a constant dynamic process, it seems, for some people. So, but that's what we're looking at. So, how do you give your body what it wants? Now, there are a list of good probiotic foods that you can take, and you want to make sure you get in your diet. Things like yogurt, kefir, sauerkraut, miso soup, sour pickles, tempeh, kimchi, and kombucha. So if you add like one or two of those to your daily routine every day, that's going to help. And of course, like I mentioned, I mentioned the Roundup, but try to eliminate the pesticides and use much organic. Now I'm going to interject one little thing here. When we go to the polls, we vote every 2-4 years or whatever it is, depending on the election. But you get to vote every day with your dollar. So when you go to the store and you buy organic, range-free type foods, you're voting for more of those. And when you go buy the cheapest fruit or the cheapest eggs or whatever it is, that you can possibly find, you're voting for confining those chickens into tiny cages and giving them the crappiest food. So, try to vote with your dollars as wisely as you can, because what you buy, you're going to tend to see more of. And so what would you rather have? Your grocery store full of these healthy items, the healthy options, or would you rather have a store full of the cheapest possible food that probably isn't that good for you in the first place? So in other words, add those things like the little list I mentioned, which you'll see those on different websites. If you search for top 10 probiotic foods, generally most websites seem to be in agreement about that. And, watch out for the herbicides, pesticides. Be sure to take a quality probiotic. Now, the interesting thing about probiotics is that when you take a certain probiotic, you're not going to do the genetic test like that Human Microbiome Project and see lots of those bacteria populating your intestines. They tend to help stabilize your intestinal ecosystem. So, taking a good quality probiotic will help keep things stable in your microbiome. So, you don't need a lot of this, I don't think. I've experimented myself with 1 or 2 a day sometimes, and I've taken, up to like 15 or 20 a day, and actually taking a lot tend to cause problems. And so basically I'm recommending 1 or 2 a day of a good quality probiotic that doesn't have to be the super pricey, expensive stuff. And for the one that from our personal brand is Florogenics. That's the one that we take. So that's a basic probiotic overview for right now, and hopefully that was helpful and can guide you in the right direction. So thanks a lot for listening.